So good morning, everyone. I hope that I'm audible to everyone, online students also. Someone please comment whether I'm audible. So let us continue with our internal security part. Yesterday, we have started with this. I will just quickly sum up GS3 component. In this GS3 component, we are looking into something called as internal security. Internal security, right? So we already know from internal security part, each year about 4 questions are asked, right? Secondly, we have also seen the syllabus of internal security yesterday, right? In that we have seen the syllabus like linkages between development and spread of extremism, role of external state actor and non-state actor in creating challenges to internal security, right? Cyber security, basics and challenges, right? Border issues, challenges and management, right? Then basically challenges from the media, social networking site, etc. All these things yesterday we have seen. However, today we are going to still go into detail into this first syllabus point, that is linkages between development and spread of extremism, right? I will just linkages between development and spread of extremism. In this topic of syllabus, yesterday we have already seen what is the meaning of development. That is economic growth accompanied by social well-being. Why it is needed? If not, how will it lead to something called as extremism, right? Now in India, we have different forms of extremism. Few of the forms are as follows. First is your left-wing extremism, which we call as Naxalism, right? Second is your insurgency, right? Thirdly, we have militancy or insurgency in J&K, militancy in J&K. Next, radicalism, communalism, mob lynching, etc. In this context, yesterday we have completed something called as left-wing extremism with the meaning, factors responsible and government of India's mitigation approach. So today we start with first with insurgency and then we'll complete all the forms. Yesterday we have seen that UPSC have focused on this part a lot and it has asked already 5 questions on this topic from 2013 till 2022, right? So again, today we will see in detail insurgency and associated issues. Is it clear? So let us start with insurgency. Insurgency in Northeast India. Northeast India. With respect to this topic, the following points you should compulsory know are as follows. First, to write an introduction, you should know the meaning of insurgency, right? Second, origin, how it started and why it started. Third, factors responsible for insurgency. Now, in this factors responsible, we will also see state-wise status. Of insurgency in Northeast India. Fourth, we'll also understand border challenges with respect to insurgency in Northeast India. Fifth, we'll try to understand basically Government of India's mitigation approach or strategy with respect to insurgency. In this mitigation strategy, we'll study something called as institutional, infrastructure, security related, border related issues, and basically आपका constitutional and legal provisions. Sixth, we'll also understand certain other issues with respect to Northeast India. Other issues in Northeast India. These are as follows. First, we'll understand issues related to Armed Forces Special Power Act 1958. इसके बारे में डिटेल पढ़ेंगे. This is a syllabus point. Secondly, we'll also understand issue about National Register of Citizenship, NRC. We'll also understand issue related to Inner Line Permit, right? We'll also understand what is this Naga Pact and how it was there. Naga Pact. We'll also understand about Manipur violence. Right? Then we'll also understand the issue with respect to Rohingyas and Chakmas and Hejongs. Rohingya immigrants, comma, and separate topic is Chakma, Hejong refugees. So these are the points that we have to understand with respect to Northeast India, and on every topic there is a probability that question can be asked. In past, UPSC has already asked 2 times questions. As I mentioned earlier, left-wing extremism के ऊपर 5 questions are there. On insurgency, there are about, I would say, 2 questions. But one of the question was asked with respect to Armed Forces Special Power Act. And there is a very high probability this year, because of this issue, Manipur violence, there can be yet another basic fundamental question on this insurgency topic. Getting the idea? So let us start to understand all these points, each and every point, right? So here we will focus mainly upon this thing and this thing. However, you should also understand, these are the 3 points which you should know for your mains examination. But without understanding this, you cannot understand any other issue. So in brief, we will take a general idea about this in 10-15 minutes, and then we will move on to this part, right? Before starting all these points, let us try to understand India itself and Northeast India itself, right? Now, I just want to give you a brief idea about Northeast India, and then we shall now let us try to understand this Northeast India. Now, Northeast India, basics of it, and then we'll move on to the issue of insurgency. Since ancient past till today, this Northeast India is connected to mainland India. This is the mainland, correct? Mainland India, it is connected by very narrow corridor, which we call as Siliguri corridor, which is also called as chicken neck. It is about 22 kilometers. So this is the only pathway through which we can enter to the Northeast India. And because of this, there is a lack of direct connect between mainland India and Northeast India. Now, Northeast India comprises of the 8 states. Now, this total Northeast India occupies about 8% of total India's landmass. India's landmass. Now this Northeast India is culturally very diverse, and plural society is there. Since ancient times, that is before British times, I'm saying, before independence also, there are multiple, basically I would say, ethnic and communal clashes. Ethnic clashes and tribal rivalry. Tribal rivalry is present in Northeast India. And Northeast India, if you try to understand Northeast India, if you try to understand geography of Northeast India, right? Everything you are going to need for the writing the mains answer, that is why I am teaching it, right? Now this Northeast India, if you try to understand, it is connected by, I would say, the mainland part. Similarly, Northeast India has boundary with Bhutan, right? It has boundary with, I would say, China. It has boundary with basically आपका Myanmar, right? And it has also boundary with your, I would say, Bangladesh. Getting the idea? It has boundaries with different countries. It has boundaries with different countries, and that is why it is more important. Example, along with Myanmar, it has 1624 kilometers boundary. This is your China, this is your Bhutan, this is your Bangladesh, right? So this is your Northeast India. Imagine, I hope that you are getting the idea. I will come to this point, that is basics of insurgency, everything. But before that, just try to understand Northeast India. So Northeast India is connected to mainland India just by a small corridor that we call as a chicken neck. And Northeast India is essentially having a dominant tribal population, which essentially comprises basically 8% of the total landmass of the country. Getting the idea? And this society, the people living here are very, very culturally diverse and are tribal. And since ancient times, there is an ethnic and tribal rivalry among the different communities present in the Northeast India. Correct? If you try to understand geography about it, it has extremely rugged terrain. Rugged terrain essentially means that the topography is very, 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 I would say, it has dense forest and it has hilly terrain. It has hilly terrain and rugged forest. For example, you have dense evergreen forest along the basically Mizoram, etc. You have your multiple mountain ranges, etc. Because of this, there is lack of, I would say, there are challenges with respect to connectivity, with respect to roads, rails, etc. Getting the idea? By taking cognizance of all these things, now let us try to understand what is the meaning of insurgency and how it has been originated and why is it still present in India. Is it clear? I hope you got the idea. Now let us come to the point. First, let us try to understand what is the meaning of insurgency, right? Insurgency essentially means it is an act of rebellion. It is an act of rebellion or armed insurgency by a section of society, किसके लिए? To overthrow the government, and establish their own state. That means any insurgent groups which are the part of the society itself will make use of the violence. Violence in the form of the attacks, raids, sabotage, kidnapping, extortion, multiple types of violence are there. All the types of violences these insurgent groups will make, that is, that act of violence we call it as act of rebellion. That means the people, a group of people are rebelling against the main state, that is government. For why? To overthrow the government and to establish their own state. Establish their own state means establish their own country. Example, Naga National Council, which was found in 1946, or presently it is National Socialist Council of Nagaland, Khaplang Group, wants to establish something called as a sovereign Nagalim. So Nagalim, that is the insurgent groups, these are the groups present in the, these are the Naga tribes. They have came together to basically destabilize the state, or rather overthrow the government and establish their own country called as Nagalim. Now this Nagalim, they want the areas from Nagaland, certain areas of Manipur, certain areas of Arunachal and certain areas of Burma, that is Myanmar, and they want to establish their own country. So this is why, that is why they will carry out the attacks on the security forces, Assam Rifles, paramilitary forces, security forces, state police forces. They will be attacking to overthrow the government and establishing their own country. Getting the idea? That means it is an act of secession. It is an act of secession. That means they want to establish their own sovereign state. Getting the idea? So insurgency is act of violence by a section of society, especially the insurgent groups, to basically किसके लिए? To overthrow the government and to establish their own sovereign state. Getting the idea? Now, if you try to understand the origin, now in this origin, or the Northeast India represents extremely cultural and ethnic diversity. Cultural and ethnic diversity, not only from now, from ancient times. There are multiple ethnic tribal groups. Example, Kukis, Metis, Nagas, Bodos. Getting the idea? ऐसे Garos, Khasis, Jantiyas, ये सारे क्या है? Multiple tribal groups are there, right? Between them, there is ancient rivalry. Ancient rivalry is present. And also there are always clashes between these community and there is violence. Because of this extreme diversity and because of the complex relationship, what did Britishers do here? Britishers followed the policy of deliberate exclusion. What does it mean? It means that because of the striking set of the ethnic and the cultural diversity, Britishers ने directly intrude नहीं किया. Rather, they made use of something called as Christian missionaries. Getting the idea? Christian missionaries to penetrate into the Northeast India. That is, this is the backdoor entry. Getting the idea? Why? Because if they had been directly involving into Northeast India, there have been multiple revolts. Getting the idea? So to stop that, they did a backdoor entry. But post-independence, what was the relationship of this small, I would say, states in Northeast India with respect to the main government of India? There was only one state called as North-East Frontier Agency, post-independence. But there were different kingdoms and different tribal groups which had their own unique way of living. And they wanted to secede from India, or basically they wanted India just as a protectorate state, nothing else. So to work out the relationships, there were multiple ongoing talks. However, Government of India curbed the insurgency and provided multiple constitutional and legal safeguards to the tribes of Northeast India, to these tribes, to basically incorporate their demands into our nation and to stop insurgency. Question is how? Basically, first was by bringing something called as 6th schedule. Under 6th schedule of Constitution of India, more autonomy, self-rule and decentralization was provided, so that people can govern for themselves in the states of Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya and Mizoram. Getting the idea? So why is it? Because they are not yet completely assimilated with the main people. इसीलिए ये किया. Similarly, special provisions were incorporated in the Constitution of India in the form of article 371 A. So basically, to encompass the demands of these diverse ethnic people, Government of India brought multiple constitutional legal safeguards for whom the people in the Northeast, so that they can assimilate with in mind and spirit with complete mainland India. However, this did not happen. Immediately post independence, that means post 1947, this did not happen. Let us try to understand the reason, one of the reasons for that. Example, post independence, in 1946, that is before independence, what is the position and the role of these people, that is Nagas? Do they really want to enter into the mainland India, or do they really want the Government of India to be their own country? So iske liye, to find out the relationship, in 1946, that is before independence, 1 year, Naga National Council was created. Naga National Council was created. In this, the leader was Angami Fizo. So to determine the relationship of the Naga state with the mainland India, NNC was determined. And a referendum was held by it. I hope that you are knowing referendum coming. A referendum was held, and out of this, about 99% of people voted to have a separate state, so called as Nagaland. All of them wanted to establish something called as Nagaland. Correct? Now, because of this resolution and because of this referendum, a separate government was formed by this NNC. Kahan pe? In Nagaland. Right? To curb this separate government, etc., Government of India enforced something called as Armed Forces Special Power Act 1958. Getting the idea? Why was Armed Forces Special Power Act basically brought in? It was basically a colonial act brought by the British government to suppress Quit India movement of 1942. After that, because the violence in Northeast India, especially in Nagaland, started, it spread like a fire throughout the Northeast India. To curb that, you needed to give special powers. To whom? To the armed forces. In this context, an ordinance was passed, right, during Dr. Rajendra Prasad, in the form of Armed Forces Special Power Acts. Getting the idea? So, in this context, APSPA was formed, more powers are given to control the violence. Getting the idea? And later, there are multiple things, National Socialist Council of Nagaland found, etc. That we will see. I hope you are getting the idea. So, basically, I hope you got the idea why there is so violence, because of their own culture, own way of living, right? So, I hope you got the meaning, the significance. Also, the Northeast India is geopolitically and geostrategically extremely important for us. Why? For Act East policy. Threat of China, intrusion into Arunachal Pradesh. So because of this, Northeast India is completely important. The security and stability of Northeast India is completely important for us. Getting the idea? To ensure the sovereignty and integrity of our mainland. Getting the idea? So I hope that you got the basic idea about the meaning and origin, how it started, since ancient time it is there, and how it is ongoing, that we will see in state-wise status. Got it? Now let us try to understand mainly factors responsible for the insurgency in Northeast India, or the challenges with respect to insurgency in Northeast India. So, factors responsible for insurgency in Northeast India. Now, in Northeast India, you have different states presently, right? Earlier, there was only one state called as Northeast Frontier Agency, NEFA. Then in 1963, Nagaland was created to meet their demands, right? उसके बाद 1972 में, to meet the demands of the different tribes, Manipur, Tripura, etc. was created. Meghalaya, Manipur, Tripura, and Meghalaya were created. And उसके बाद, if I am not wrong, in 1987, Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram was created, right? That means different states were formed, more devolution of power was done for what? To assimilate the demands of the different tribes. So, there are different factors. That means different states, that means state-wise, there are different demands and different demands for what? Insurgency. Example, Nagas, for example, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, it is an insurgent group, especially Khaplang group. NSC and KN want to go out of mainland India and want to establish their own sovereign state. Similarly, second example, if you try to understand, National Democratic Front of Bodoland, NDFB, it is also insurgent group. इनको क्या चाहिए? It wants separate Bodo state. इनको क्या चाहिए? Separate country, Nagaland. इनको क्या चाहिए? Separate Bodo state. So various groups are having various demand. Similarly, People's Liberation Army in Manipur, इनका अलग डिमांड है. उसके बाद यूनाइटेड लिबरेशन फ्रंट ऑफ आसाम, इनका अलग डिमांड है. मतलब देयर आर डिफरेंट ट्राइब्स इन डिफरेंट स्टेट्स विच आर हैविंग देयर यूनिक डिमांड. गेटिंग द आइडिया? रिसेंटली कुकीज का डिमांड कुछ अलग है एंड मीटीज का कुछ अलग है. मतलब विद इन द स्टेट there are n number of the tribal groups and each tribal group have their own demand. But in general, if you try to understand what are the factors responsible for insurgency, what we can say is that if you try to understand this map of India, then you will understand the following reasons. First, I will just first dictate here and then I will come to the point. मतलब पहले लिख सुनो and उसके बाद ये. First is basically lack of connectivity of Northeast India with the mainland India. Correct? If there is lack of connectivity, people to people contact reduces. Right? Now, second reason is the people staying here are totally discriminated mainly in mainland India. We consider these people as Chini people or Chinese people, which is itself is a derogatory thing. They are the citizens of India, but we compare them as a Chinese. So that means secondary class citizenship is given to these people. Northeast India, let that be from Manipur, Assam, Tripura, koi bhi rehne do. What I want to say is that they are being discriminated by whom? The people living in here. It is offense now, yaad rakhna. So basically that is, so because of this there will be sense of alienation, right? Secondly, this Northeast India is since ancient time facing ancient tribal rivalries within the different groups. अभी से नहीं, पहले से. Getting the idea? Secondly, उसके बाद this insurgency in Northeast India is fueled by the factors like easy availability of the arms. Arms are available because of something called as Golden Triangle. So Golden Triangle is an area present along Thailand, Laos and Myanmar. So because of this easy availability of क्या होता है? Arms. Getting the idea? Similarly, because of lack of arms available होगे तो violence आराम से होगा. Plus, there is something called as organized criminal linkages. Correct? Between Northeast India and different groups present. Plus, if you try to understand, imagine this is the Myanmar and Manipur border. Along this border, mainly there is lot of ethnic linkages, but there is ineffective border management, and because of ineffective border management, these arms, drugs, prostitution, cattle smuggling, everything easily happens. Getting the idea? So because of this, if some of the insurgent groups, if they are provided arms, weapons, or I would say funding, तो आराम से करेंगे वो violence. Why is it so? Because of ineffective border management. Now question is, why is there is ineffective border management? Ineffective border management ka main reason is that here there is something called as rugged terrain, and because of this rugged terrain, dense forest and basically hilly terrain, easy pathways are present for these terrorist groups to move from here to here. Getting the idea? Also there is something called as 16 kilometer free boundary movement regime between India and Myanmar. That means for 16 kilometers कोई भी आ जा सकता है यहाँ से. So because of this, what happens? These groups like People Liberation Army, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, National Democratic Front of Bodoland, they will carry the attacks and raids, and by taking the advantage of this rugged topography, they will enter into Myanmar. And in Myanmar, they will be having houses over here. These are called as safe hideouts. Safe hideouts. Getting the idea? These are safe hideouts. That means places where they can go and stay. That means they will carry attack here, यहाँ पे जाके रहेंगे. So that we cannot go on the Myanmar territory, na? If we are going and invading Myanmar territory, that essentially means act of war. Getting the idea? तो हम लोग नहीं जा सकते, but they are easily going. Why are they easily going? Because along with India and Myanmar, the people living along the Myanmar boundary and people in Manipur especially are having very good ethnic linkages. Ethnic linkage. Some of them do have roti beti ka vyavhar. Getting the idea? So because of this, easy passage are there. That means because of ineffective border management, what has happened? Easy arms, easy attacks and safe hideouts are present, and because of that still insurgency is present. Plus, as we have seen rightly here, यहाँ पे और क्या हुआ है? Easy availability of the arms. Why easy availability of arms? Because of golden triangle. Similarly, if you try to understand this country, right? This country, that is Bangladesh, the population density of Bangladesh is too much. Plus, in Bangladesh, there is lack of development and lack of employment opportunities. इसीलिए, what will happen? Anyone? People will tend to move from Bangladesh to some other place which has employment opportunities and developmental opportunities. And that is none other than the fertile Brahmaputra plains. Because fertile Brahmaputra plain mein you can go settle, do agriculture, eat something. So that means you can find your livelihood, get employment opportunities. Plus India mein there is good infrastructure with respect to Bangladesh. That is why people tend to migrate from Bangladesh towards the fertile plains of Brahmaputra. These are called as illegal migration. Illegal migration. Now when they are moving from illegal migration, that means in Bangladesh there are certain push factors. That is, people are moving out because of lack of development, lack of employment opportunities, lack of basic infrastructure. But if you try to understand in Brahmaputra plain area, what is there? Agriculture you can do, livelihood you have, good infrastructure is present. So इसीलिए this is good thing. But this has created insurgency in Northeast India. Q. Let us take one simple example. Here in Assam, this area, you have something called as on the northern banks of basically Brahmaputra, you have something called as Bodo people. Bodos. So Bodos are ancient tribal people living in fertile Assam plain since ancient times. And they have their own way of living, own culture, own language, सब कुछ खुद का है उनका. However, these illegal immigrants, especially Bengali people, right, Bangladeshi people, have went and started to stay in those areas. What will happen? What will happen if, tell me, if a person from X areas will go and live in Y area? There will be basically more people will be there, right? That means land is limited now. But here what happened? More people came. Which are these people? Are they own people? No. These were ancient Bodo peoples which had their own language. But now who came? Bangladeshi people came, example, right? Because of this, they will bring their own culture. But there will be competition between these two things. There will be competition for what? Land. There will be competition for what? Employment. Their culture will be threatened. Everything will be threatened. Will they tolerate? So they will want these people to get out. So इसीलिए they will conduct the violent raids and attacks and killings. Getting the idea? So in this Northeast India, one of the main reasons is illegal immigration, and change in the demography and associated issues is one of the reasons for the insurgency in Northeast India. Getting the idea? So Northeast India, why is there insurgency? First, it's ancient region, that is ancient tribal rivalries, that is ethnic and communal clashes since ancient times. Secondly, basically lack of development. If you try to understand Northeast India, in general, other than Mizoram, other areas may there is lack of basic infrastructure, lack of employment opportunities. So because of this, what will happen? It will provide a fertile breeding grounds for the insurgents to grow in this area. Getting the idea? Similarly, also there are a number of challenges associated from the border areas for fueling the insurgency because of easy availability of the arms and the porous boundaries and the rugged terrain. Getting the idea? People to people contact is less. Cultural assimilation and discrimination and deprivation from the mainland India is also less. Lack of implementation of the constitution and the legal safeguards given to them is also not implemented in letter and spirit. So because of this, there is insurgency in Northeast India. Getting the idea? So you can divide these factors responsible for Northeast insurgency into because of border related issues, secondly because of lack of development, third you can write about the governance, fourth you can write about the constitution and the legal measures, fifth you can write about the security issues. Security issues example, Armed Forces Special Power Act. Because of UPSPA in Northeast India, basically there are allegations with respect to human right violations, fundamental right violation, extrajudicial killings, rapes, tortures, etc. Because of this, people are not feeling good in this area against the armed forces. Getting the idea? So you can divide this into various categories. Is it clear? I hope you got the factors responsible for the Northeast India insurgency. Now, in general, later, first I will dictate now and then I will, later we will understand the state-wise status. That means, what is the status of insurgency in Nagaland? What is presently happening in Manipur? What is presently happening in Arunachal Pradesh? And what is happening in Assam? These are the main states where insurgency ke baare mein you should know most of the things. Getting the idea? That we will see in detail, but first we will write this and then we will move on to this part. Done? We write insurgency in Northeast India. First point. Northeast. Sorry? I am not able to get it. Is it? Is it live on the YouTube? Huh? Let us write the notes, because for the students who have taken the course, for them YouTube wala this session you can watch. Rest if it is not recorded, need not to worry. Write the introduction. Northeast India have the striking set of socio-cultural dynamics with respect to ethnicity, language, socio-cultural practices, Full stop. There is ethnic assertion amongst the tribal groups the tribal groups and has the long history of conflict and violence and has long history of conflict and violence among the tribal groups. Conflict and violence among the tribal groups. Is it clear? So इसमें I have made most of the things, that is historical perspective, ये सब कुछ, right? You write meaning. So you write meaning. Insurgency means an act of rebellion. Insurgency means an act of rebellion or armed struggle by a section of society to overthrow the government. Example, certain Naga insurgent groups, उसका नाम क्या है? NSCNK, that is National Socialist Council of Nagaland Khaplang Group, that I will teach. Certain, क्या बोला था मैंने? Certain Naga insurgent groups want to establish a separate sovereign state of Nagaland. Okay. Certain points you write. Next point you write. Insurgency in Northeast India. Have long history and there are more than hundreds of tribal group which are in continuous conflict with each other. Full stop. Hence British government followed. British government कब? Before independence. Hence British government before independence followed. क्या follow किया था उन्होंने? Policy of deliberate exclusion. Next point. Post-independence. To accommodate the different demands of different tribal groups, Government of India, GOI, Government of India provided constitutional and legal safeguards. Example, 6th schedule. First example, 6th schedule provides autonomy, self-rule and self-rule and decentralization and decentralization and decentralization for certain areas. Decentralization for certain areas. Second example you write, also special provisions like Article 371A, also special provisions like Article 371A were incorporated in the Constitution, were incorporated in the Constitution. Were incorporated in the Constitution. Next point. Later, GOI, that is Government of India, also formed, क्या form किया था? Also formed different states. Example, Nagaland in 1963, Manipur, Tripura, Meghalaya in 1972, Manipur, Tripura, Meghalaya in 1972, and Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, in 1987. Right? So this is the basic intro. पहला सिर्फ डेफिनेशन चाहिए आपको एंड एग्जांपल चाहिए इन द आंसर. डन. If you want, you can write the facts. घर जाके you can include this fact that is Northeast India has the boundaries with the different countries. For example, 699 kilometers with Bhutan, 1624 kilometers with Myanmar. Bangladesh के साथ it has the largest boundary, right? More than 2000 kilometers, etc. 8% of the total land mass. It has culturally diverse, ethnic clashes are there. Geographic terrain is much more diverse. You can write these points later after going home. Now come directly to next point, that is factors responsible for insurgency in Northeast India. Factors responsible for insurgency in Northeast India. In bracket write, उसके सामने ऐसे ब्रैकेट में लिखो, different states have different reasons and demands, have different reasons and demands for the insurgency, Example, some want to establish separate state मतलब country I am speaking of, that is Nagalim. Separate state, that is country, Nagalim. Some tribal group want, some want separate state. अभी ये छोटा वाला state मतलब separate state, just like Manipur, Tripura. Some want, more autonomy, etc. मतलब हर एक का डिमांड अलग अलग है, इसलिए रीजन भी अलग अलग होगा. Got it? But in general we'll write the different factors. First, lack of development. Second, geographic isolation from mainland India. In front of it, you can write Northeast India is connected to mainland. Northeast India is connected to mainland through through a chicken neck, in bracket write about 22 kilometer, about 22 kilometer along Siliguri corridor, along Siliguri corridor. This lack of connectivity, this lack of connectivity have led to less people to people contact, cultural assimilation and integration, cultural assimilation and integration. Second point, ये हो गया first point. Second point, feeling of alienation and deprivation, due to discrimination. Third, due to ethnic and communal violence. Fourth, proximity to golden triangle and easy availability of arms. ये कौन देता है? Who give this? That is presence of organized criminal linkages. Presence of organized criminal linkages. Next, ये अंदर कैसे आता है? Along the borders. That is because of, next is ineffective border management. Next point, ineffective border management. उसके सामने डैश करके लिखो, due to rugged terrain, comma dense forest, infiltration is difficult to control. Okay, next इसके बाद you write ये due to most important क्या था ये? Due to infiltration of illegal immigrants, and change in demography, in front of it you can write, this have led to sense of alienation among the indigenous tribes, and the threat to culture and language, mainly. Got the idea? So these are one of the most important reasons. इसमें few of the reasons like APSPA भी है, etc., lack of people connectivity, lack of mutual respect. You can add others, but these are main reasons. I hope you got it. Now, let us try to understand state-wise issue. You can write state-wise issues. state-wise issue. Just listen, then we'll move on to the other topic. Here we are trying to discuss about, this is our Northeast India, right? Here I am trying to discuss you with respect to this state. This state is our Nagaland. Nagaland, correct? So the history, I will not go into history that when did the Nagaland became the part of the British Empire during 1811 etc. वो मैं नहीं जा रहा हूँ. I will directly come to the point. This Nagaland, earlier there was only one state called as Northeast Frontier Agency, right? Now Nagaland did not wanted to integrate with mainland India, and it wanted to remain a separate state. So to work out their conditions with respect to mainland India, in 1946, National Naga Council was established under Angami Fizo. He was the leader, and this National Naga Council, as I mentioned earlier, conducted referendum for which most of the people voted for what? Separate state of Nagaland, right? Now this separate state of Nagaland essentially is nothing but the present state of Nagaland plus the part of this Arunachal Pradesh, mainly 3 districts, Lohit, Changlang and Tirap. ये 3 districts mainly, certain parts of Manipur and certain parts of your Burma, that is Myanmar. तो ये पूरा मिलके एक होगा Naga state, that is Nagalim, as per NNC. Got the idea? But after this, they established their own government. As they started to establish their own government, Indian government and the forces retaliated to this violence. To curb this violence, in 1958, Armed Forces Special Power Act was promulgated. Armed Forces Special Power Act was promulgated by Government of India to curb this violence, okay, and to bring Naga people into mainland India in mind and spirit. But ऐसे हुआ नहीं अभी तक. Anyways, after this, in basically 1960s 70s में a 9-point agreement was signed. A 9-point agreement was signed between this NNC and GOI, that is Government of India. But Government of India did not accept it. Q, because as per this 9-point agreement, NNC said, that is National Naga Council, emphasized that it will lead to formation of separate Nagaland with India as just a protectorate state. ऐसा थोड़ी करेगा. And it will surrender its certain, I would say, the certain subjects like communication, defense, external affairs, thoda sa. But this Government of India did not accept it. So still violence continued. Got the idea? In this context, later, in 1975, Shillong Accord was signed. Shillong Accord was signed. As per this Shillong Accord, NNC had to give up the violence, and NNC agreed. Chalo theek hai, we'll leave this demand of violence, but you provide us more autonomy under Article 371, more funds for the development, everything. So Government of India said, fine, everything is fine for us until unless you are assimilating. If you want development, we are ready to develop you. Getting the idea? We are ready to provide you anything, but only one basically thing that we want is that you observe the violence, you leave the path of violence, come into our, in mind and spirit. You are our part only. Bula nahi raha, you are our part only. We are telling you. Getting the idea? So this is what happened in 1975. Later, this Shillong Accord was opposed. Opposed by whom? In 1980, it was opposed by basically a group of people from NNC. They opposed, and they led to the formation of something called as National सोशलिस्ट काउंसिल ऑफ नागालैंड। समझ में आया? Some of the people from NNC were not satisfied with Shillong Accord, इसीलिए they came out and they found NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland. As per them, this is the true thing. That is, they still want to establish what is called as separate Nagaland, which would be a socialist state as per their constitution. देखो ना, नेशनल सोशलिस्ट काउंसिल ऑफ नागालैंड, मतलब काउंसिल ऑफ नागालैंड वुड बी देयर एंड दैट गवर्नमेंट वुड बी अ सोशलिस्ट गवर्नमेंट एंड उनका सेपरेट कंट्री होगा. विच कंट्री? दिस कंट्री, एज पर एनएससीएन. बट देयर वर डिफरेंसेस विच लेड टू द स्प्लिट ऑफ एनएससीएन इनटू टू ग्रुप्स. स्प्लिट हो गया इनका इनटू टू ग्रुप्स. विच वर दीज टू ग्रुप्स? between two people, NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, Khaplang group, that is a person named after a particular person, Khaplang, and National Socialist Council of Nagaland, Isak and Muya. These are two people. Okay. So this got split into mid of 1980s. Recently, Government of India, with this NSCN-IM, National Socialist Council of Nagaland के साथ Government of India in year 2015 signed something called as Naga Pact or Naga Accord. Got the idea? So as per this, ये दो ग्रुप में से हम लोग किसके साथ बात कर रहे हैं अभी? Isak and Muya, right? And this guy have mentioned that I will leave the path of violence. आप पैसे दे दो, डेवलपमेंट लाओ, मोर पावर्स दे दो, दैट इज फाइन फॉर मी एंड आई विल एब्जर्व द वायलेंस. गेटिंग द आइडिया? दिस इज व्हाट वाज एग्रीड अंडर द नागा पैक्ट. स्टिल खापलांग ग्रुप ने वायलेंस करना छोड़ा नहीं है अभी तक. गेटिंग द आइडिया? बट टिल नाउ, प्रेजेंटली टिल 2022, देयर इज डिले इन द implementation of Naga Pact, and that is why still violence is there. History समझ में आया पूरा? What is this Naga Pact? Naga Pact is important for UPSC. ये पूरा नहीं है, but to understand this आपको ये पता होना चाहिए. This Naga Pact is a pact between GOI and NSCN, Isak and Muya group, right? Between these two groups. This pact was brokered by a bureaucrat जिसका नाम है, later he became a governor, R.N. Ravi. इन्होंने किया था ये. He mediated it and it was a historic pact. As per this, NSC and IM is going to leave the path of violence. Okay? They are going to leave the demand for separate state of Nagalim. ये दोनों छोड़ दो आप. सेपरेट स्टेट की भी बात छोड़ दो एंड वायलेंस का भी छोड़ दो. However, in return, we will give you more powers under Article 371A. ये constitutional provision है. For what? Special status for what? Nagaland. So under this article, we will devolve more powers. Plus special package for the development shall be given. But here you have to leave the demand of ये सब कुछ. Everything rest assured we will give. These are the provisions of this pact. However, recently there is delay in this implementation of the pact because there are allegations from both of the sides with respect to proper implementation and the wordings of this pact. As per this guy now, IM, it says that it has agreed to the pact, but it wants separate flag, which was not part of this as per the interlocutor R.N. Ravi. उन्होंने ये बोला था, ये पैक्ट में से कुछ था ही नहीं कि सेपरेट फ्लैग, सेपरेट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. तो इसका मतलब सेपरेट कंट्री बना लो ना, इससे अच्छा. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? सो बिकॉज ऑफ दिस देयर इज डिले. बट दिस प्रोसेस is essentially one of the, I would say, a classic case study where dialogues, negotiation and deliberation with the insurgent groups by the interlocutors and by the government of India can work out to find a peaceful solution. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? So this is about the Nagaland. तो नागालैंड के बारे में you can expect a question that why is that insurgency and what is this Nagaland Naga Pact and why, what are the provisions and basically why is it delayed. Got the idea? Right about Nagaland. Sorry? यूटी नहीं उसके लिए ये जो है ना यहाँ से ही पावर्स दे देंगे हम. योर क्वेश्चन इज अबाउट यूटी यूनियन टेरिटरी. उनको तो स्टेट हुड चाहिए था, हमने सेपरेट इसीलिए तो आउट ऑफ फर्स्ट इट वाज द फर्स्ट स्टेट इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया टू बी गिवन स्टेटहुड टू टेल दैट यस डेफिनेटली यू आर यूनिक, योर कल्चरल इज यूनिक. डू यू नो नागा ट्राइब्स आर मोस्ट एजुकेटेड इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया, वन ऑफ द मोस्ट एजुकेटेड ट्राइब है. पिछला मत समझना, बहुत एजुकेटेड है ये लोग, लिटरेट है पूरा. So they will look after basically their culture. Getting that? Just for example, if you try to understand Tamil culture and North Indian culture, Tamils will not speak basically Hindis. This is what is the culture differences between the countries still present. So similarly, इनको ऐसा बोलना है कि this is our indigenous culture, हमें assimilate होना ही नहीं है. So for that, we are just trying to give them certain incentives in the form of the articles, constitutions, separate statehood, separate packages, more power, right? What is the sixth schedule about? Basically special provisions to the Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, Mizoram, right? Where executive, judicial and administrative powers are given to the people themselves in the form of the territorial councils and the regional councils. Getting that? तो उससे कुछ ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. Okay? You right? Nagaland. Insurgency in Nagaland started under the leadership of Fizo in 1950s. In early 1950s. Okay? Naga tribes inhabit or live in Naga Hills. Naga tribes reside in Naga Hills along Burma border, along the Burma border. Next point you write directly ऐसे timeline नहीं लिखो. In 1946, NNC was constituted to work out the relationship with government of India after British withdrawal. After British withdrawal. In that only next point, a referendum was conducted. What is referendum? A direct means of democracy. A referendum was conducted which voted in favor of Nagaland. Next point, violence spreaded like a fire in complete northeast India with respect to insurgency. Violence spreaded in northeast India. Next point. To contain it मतलब violence. To contain it, क्या किया था हमने? Armed Forces Special Power Act was promulgated. Armed Forces Special Power Act (APSPA) was promulgated in 1958. Next, direct net. ये छोड़ दो 9-point agreement ये वो सब कुछ काम का नहीं. Directly come to this. In 1975, a Shillong Accord was signed. This is just for your understanding a story. This is not needed for the mains. Mains के लिए सिर्फ ये चाहिए. And in 1975, a Shillong Accord was signed. And some of the sections of NNC and some sections of NNC agreed to give up the arms. Next point. Hence, in opposition to it, hence in opposition to it, in 1980, hence in opposition to it, in 1980, what was formed, guys? क्या था? NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland. NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, was established. First off, it later was split into two groups or two factions. Was later split into two factions called as NSCN-K and NSCN-IM. K is nothing but Khaplang, 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 that is name of the person. And NSCN-IM, Isak, Isak, Muya, Muvih, Isak and Muya. Next point, 19. Recently, Government of India in 2015 signed Naga Pact with किसके साथ? NSCN-IM, with NSCN-IM. As per the pact, first point, क्या होगा? As per the pact, first point, devolution of the more power under article, which article? 371A. Under article 371A. Second, army of NSCN-IM to be dismantled. Army of NSCN-IM to be dismantled. Third, more autonomy. Third point, more autonomy to the Nagas living in Manipur. Fourth point, to leave the path of violence and demand of Nagaland. To leave the path of violence and the demand of Nagaland. Next point. However, this Naga Peace Accord is delayed. Since NSCN-IM is demanding separate flag and constitution. Next point, you write. As per MHA report recently, first point, you write. Nagaland witnessed 45% decline in the number of violent incidents. With respect to 2019, Nagaland witnessed 45% decline in the number of violent incidents with respect to 2019, and no civilians and security forces deaths, or casualties. Okay, so this is about the किसके बारे में ये? Nagaland. Now let us see yet another state, अपना मणिपुर. First listen. So if you try to understand, here we have something called as Manipur. Okay. In Manipur, try to understand what is the basic things ongoing, and later we'll understand what are the reasons for insurgency, etc. In Manipur, there are, पहले देखते हैं मणिपुर का geography and मणिपुर का society. Correct? मणिपुर का geography and मणिपुर का society. In Manipur, there is something called as hilly area and there is plain area. There is hilly area and there is plain area. Hilly area यहाँ पे है, correct? In this area, you have hilly area, and here you have Imphal, right? Imphal is a valley, मतलब वो पूरा plain area है. बाकी area is hill area. This is geography, and there are dense forest in this area. Now this Manipur में society or the people living in Manipur are divided into three tribes. Mainly the most dominant tribe is Meitei tribe. Okay, Meitei tribe. Second is your Kuki tribes, and third is your Naga tribes. Right? Now, out of all the 100% population of Manipur, about 65% of the population is of kiska? Meitei tribe. The assembly of Manipur, ये सब कुछ लगेगा आपको इसी the assembly, that is state legislative assembly, has 60 seats in Manipur. Out of that, most of the seats are in valley areas. This tribe, Meitei tribes, are dominant tribes in Manipur, correct? And they have their very large presence in कहाँ पे? Legislature and economy. ये दोनों इसमें they exert an abundant amount of influence in complete Manipur, right? And they are Hindu tribes belonging to Vaishnava sect. They follow Vaishnavism sect, and they are Hindu tribes. Kaun? Meitei tribes. Now they live in fertile plain area of the valley. Fertile valley area में कौन रहता है? Meiteis, who are living Meiteis. So Meiteis are dominant. They exert high influence in the legislature and in the economy of the state. Now, let us try to understand Kukis and Nagas. Now, both of these tribes are about 35% of the population, correct? And Kukis and Nagas mainly live in hilly areas. They mainly reside in hilly areas. They mainly reside in the hilly areas. The population of Naga tribe is the least amongst all of them. Okay. So, these Kuki tribes wanted something called as separate state, which is called as Kuki land. Kuki land. Just like Nagaland, इनको अपना खुद का देश बनाना, state चाहिए, not देश, separate state, that is Kuki land. But now they have trimmed in their demand to something called as उनको territorial council चाहिए with more powers. Okay, this is what is the demand of Kukis. Got it? Demand of Nagas. Nagas को क्या चाहिए? कि the Nagas which are staying here, where are they staying? In the hilly areas, northern areas of Manipur. उनको क्या करना है? उनको they want to get added to something called as Nagaland. That is Nagaland. That means Naga tribes want to assimilate with greater Nagaland or Nagaland. मतलब, I hope you are getting the idea. All of them are tribes, most dominant. Inka demand is separate state. Inka demand, I want to go there. And the geography, etc. Now, recently what happened, I will tell you. I hope you are getting the idea. So, for ensuring their demands, you have different insurgent groups here called as People Liberation Army, etc. ऐसे बहुत सारे insurgent groups है यहाँ पे. Now what is happening, this Manipur ka, I will tell you one more thing, they are having ethnic linkages with Myanmar. म्यांमार के साथ बहुत ज़्यादा एथनिक लिंकेजेस है. सो व्हाट विल पीएलए डू, पीएलए मतलब पीपल लिबरेशन आर्मी. यहाँ पे कौन सा है इंसर्जेंट ग्रुप, नेशनल सोशलिस्ट काउंसिल ऑफ नागालैंड, राइट. आसाम में कौन सा है, यूएलएफए, यूनाइटेड लिबरेशन फ्रंट ऑफ आसाम. ऑल दीज गाइज विल कैरी इंसर्जेंसी ऑपरेशंस कहाँ पे, इन देयर ओन स्टेट्स, मणिपुर, नागालैंड. एंड उसके बाद व्हाट विल दे डू, दे विल एस्केप इनटू Myanmar. Getting the idea? They will escape into Myanmar and they will stay here in the hideouts. And how are they going to escape? They are going to escape by taking the help of porous boundaries. Porous geographic boundaries. Porous geographic boundaries क्यों? Because of rugged terrain. इसीलिए वो आराम से यहाँ पे आके वहाँ पे जाएंगे, वहाँ से यहाँ पे. And plus they are having ethnic linkage. तो इसीलिए दे विल गेट सपोर्ट फ्रॉम द पीपल हियर. इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हैड टू कैरी आउट समथिंग कॉल्ड एज हॉट परस्यूट अटैक. हैव यू सीन उरी मूवी विक्की कौशल का, हाउ इज द जोश? उसमें जो फर्स्ट सीन ऑफ दैट मूवी वेयर द पीपल, द आर्म्ड फोर्सेस गो वेयर, into Manipur. They will cross this Manipur, they went into Myanmar, they did hot pursuit attack and they came back. This is hot pursuit. जो कश्मीर में हुआ, that was surgical strike. What is the basic difference between both of them? You'll go home and check. But I will just tell you what is this hot pursuit. Hot pursuit means going from, this is enemy territory. Now see, Myanmar is a sovereign state. If you are going and attacking Myanmar, that will be act of war. तो हमें क्या करना है, within fraction of second अंदर घुसना है, जाके सिर्फ और सिर्फ the people, the enemies, उनको मारना है, point blank range पे मार दो, बाहर आ जाओ, बात खत्म. This is what is hot pursuit attack. To reduce most of the things, I will teach you this hot pursuit attack. Getting the idea? So मणिपुर में ये violence मतलब lack of development plus all these problems are there. Corruption is there, lack of development is there. Different I would say tribes का different demands are there. So in this recent context, what happened? These Metis tribes stated that they wanted to have something called as ST status. Metis को क्या चाहिए? Scheduled tribe status. Now question is, why do they want ST status? If you are providing a particular community with scheduled tribe status, now I am not going to, one more question that will come you in, may come for this mains examination is that, what is the procedure followed to provide any particular community ST status? So is there any particular committee on it? What is the procedure and what are the issues with respect to that? ये भी पूछ सकता है UPSC. So I'm not going into that polity part. You can check it from polity. So Metis tribes want ST status. Why do they want to have their ST status? As per Metis tribes, they say that granting us ST status will help us to provide constitutional safeguard for our community. Q, because it says that if you try to understand demography of Manipur in 1950s and presently in 2011 census, between 1951 and 2011 census, our population was about 55 to 60% at that time, and now it is 44%. पहले कितना था? 60% about. अभी हमारा कितना है? 45. And we are the indigenous people. That essentially means someone from outside is coming and staying, who is going to protect us, our culture, our people. इसीलिए ये दे दो हमें. One. Second, we want constitutional safeguards. Plus, our community is not so much progressive. We also want certain reservation, etc. So that is why they are demanding ST status. So, to protest against this, ST status, what happened? इसके बाद they went into कहाँ पे? Courts. कौन सा court? Manipur High Court. Manipur High Court emphasized that, okay, whatever these tribes are saying, that is valid. and इनको ST status दे दो. Alright. So after giving the ST status to MITI as per the directives of the High Court, उसके बाद क्या हुआ? The protest started by the cookies. Cookies started to protest. Now question is, why is that cookies are started to protest? Because cookies say, in what sense you are saying MITIs are economically and culturally backward? Out of the 60 seats in the assembly, 40 seat तो इन्हीं का है. That means dominant population representation from in the Manipur assembly comes from your community only, and most of the seats are present in this fertile Imphal valley only. They stay in Imphal. So in what sense you are basically politically and economically backward? So this is not right thing. Second, if you are given ST status, then there will be competition between us. There will be the loss of the employment opportunities and the job opportunities which are genuinely required for us. So that is why we are protesting. Getting the idea? और इनका तो सीन ही अलग है, इनको तो नागालैंड में जाना है. Getting the idea? So I hope that you are getting the idea, and this is why the recently protests are ongoing. You're right, Manipur. Manipur has ethnic populations of mainly three groups. Have ethnic population of mainly three groups. I think you can write like this directly. Metis, Cookies and Nagas keep some space. I will dictate that they are having 65% of the population. They stay in fertile plain area, etc. So first, Metis, Meti tribes. They occupy about 65% of the population of Manipur. They reside in fertile plain area. They reside in fertile plain area. Fertile plain area of Imphal Valley. Second, you write Cookies. Cookies are ethnic group including multiple tribes in Manipur, Mizoram, Assam and Myanmar. Cookies are ethnic group including multiple tribes in Manipur, Mizo, Assam and Myanmar. Full stop. They are hill residing. They reside in hilly areas. Next, Naga tribe. Naga tribes reside in hilly area and have the least population in Manipur and constitute the least population of Manipur. Next point to write. Different demands of different tribes. Different demand of different tribes. Pehla, Metis. What are they demanding? Their demand is, first point to write, Metis ka first demand. Two, for ST status. First demand is for ST status. Second demand, to preserve what has been single geographic entity for the centuries. Single geographic entity for the centuries. Correct? Q. Anyone? Because if Nagaland is taking this much amount of part, so that means some of the state is going. So they say that since century we are this much, we are not going to give, right? Metis. Third, Metis traditionally dominate. Metis traditionally dominate. Metis traditionally dominate political and economic power of the region. Political and economic power of the region. Next to that, Nagas. Nagas ka demand. Naga tribes, second, Nagas tribes. They want to integrate hilly parts into greater Nagaland. Integrate hilly parts into greater Nagaland. Next, Cookies. Cookie tribes. Earlier demand was formation of separate state of Cookie. Earlier demand was formation of separate Cookie state. Formation of separate Cookie state. However, full stop, however, now they have scaled down the demand. However, now they have scaled down the demand to form territorial council. To form territorial council. Okay, this is the basic. Next point. Recently, violence in Manipur. Erupted due to Cookies and Metis violent clashes. Due to Cookies and Metis violent clashes. In that you write reasons for the clash. Reasons for the clashes. First point. Reasons for the clashes. Hill valley tension. Hill dash valley tension. Who lives in hill, guys? Cookies. Valley में कौन रहता है? Metis. That is hill valley tension. Hill valley tension. Second, demand of ST status by the Metis. Demand of the ST status by the Metis because first point, demand of ST status by Meti tribe because reasons are uske because first their community is victimized without any constitutional safeguards. Because their community is victimized without any constitutional safeguards. Second, gradually their population is marginalized. From 59% in bracket right 1951 census to from 59% to 44% in bracket right 2011 census. Third, ST status shall help to preserve the ancestral land and the culture. Okay. Ab next point. In this context, Manipur High Court asked to provide asked to provide ST status to the Metis. Asked to provide ST status to the Meti tribes. Next point. Cookie's response. Cookie tribes response. First point in that. Cookie, since cookies claim since cookies claim they are marginalized population. Second, Metis dominate the political representation and population. Metis dominate the political representation and population of the state. Third, cookies fear the loss of the job and employment opportunities. Cookies fear about the loss of jobs and employment opportunities. Correct? This is what is the issue. Got the idea? This is complete Manipur. Conclusion में ऐसे लिख सकते हो. Government of India, GOI, needs to deal strictly against the violence. Deal strictly against the violence with dialogues and negotiations. With dialogues and negotiation between the different tribal groups. With initiating dialogues and negotiation between the different tribal groups. Between the different tribal groups. Done? Now let us try to see yet another, that is Assam. There are still one of the classic case studies is Mizoram. Mizoram का classic case study क्या है? You can write one of the case studies like Mizoram. Very short. Now, out of all the states, the most peaceful state कौन सा है? Anyone? सबसे शांत अपना मिजोरम है. क्यों पता है? So, in Mizoram, what happened? Mizoram also, it was infected with insurgency. This I won't dictate. If you want, you can take the running notes for this. It was also infected with insurgency, right? In the decades from 1960s till 80s. And the leader of this insurgency was Pu Lal Denga. Lal Denga. Need not to know. So this guy was the leader of this insurgent movement. However, during 1986, during the regime of Rajiv Gandhi, there was something called as Mizo Accord. Mizo Accord between the insurgents. Mizo Accord between insurgents and government of India. Correct? Because of this Mizo Peace Accord, just like Naga Pact, which was implemented in letter and spirit. Implementation of Mizo Accord was done in letter and spirit. Because of this, the positive results were seen in Mizoram. Correct? If क्या होगा Mizo Accord के कारण क्या आएगा? First thing, there will be peace. Correct? There will be no violence and peace will be there. Correct? And bringing all the stakeholders on the table. So it is a classic case study of the success of dialogues and deliberations. Got it? Dialogues and deliberation का एक classic success study है. What was done? इसमें after the accord इसी को CM बना दिया था. Getting the idea? He became the CM of Mizoram, and he himself was asked to do all the peace and developmental work, and he did it. इसके लिए positive result क्या हुआ? Development of the basic infrastructure. Basic infrastructure like roads, schools, hospitals, सब कुछ आ गया. Connectivity increased. Peace was there. Because of this, the state itself got developed. What the idea? समझ में आ रहा है आपको? This is a case study of Mizo. Done. Now, इसी के पास there is yet another small state called as Tripura. अब ये त्रिपुरा में क्या है basically? This Tripura is bordering Bangladesh. Okay. Now this Tripura, a geographic location, if you try to understand Tripura, इसका geographic location if you try to understand, it has extremely rugged mountain terrain, rugged mountain and dense forest terrain is there. Dense forest are there. So because of this, what happens? Because of this reason, insurgents present in Tripura में भी कम insurgency है. But because of this, what happens? Insurgents, by taking advantage of this part of geographic terrain, easily go into Bangladesh और आराम से आते हैं. Getting the idea? And because of this, by taking advantage, they can easily move from one territory to other territory. Is it clear? And because of this, here you can live in multiple good, safe hideouts. इसीलिए, what is needed to contain this? Cooperation and collaboration between whom? India and Bangladesh. Why? Because Bangladesh should not allow its own soil as the grounds for terrorism. Getting the idea? Is it clear? तो ये इसका basic है. Now let us try to understand the most volatile state, one of the most volatile state, that is Assam. Meghalaya is also शांत है थोड़ा सा. उसमें सिर्फ और सिर्फ क्या है? उसमें cattle smuggling. What happens? मेघालय का प्रॉब्लम क्या है? Cattle smuggling, infiltration of the Bengalis, etc. Is it clear? Other than that, it is थोड़ा शांत है वो. Next, Assam. If you try to understand Assam, see, they won't ask you these things, but you should know basic things. अभी Assam में क्या है? If you try to understand Assam, I will not go in detail. I will just show this part. Assam has first point, that is fertile. It has a fertile Brahmaputra plains, right? This is your Brahmaputra. Okay. In Assam, here you have Assam, okay, and here you have Bangladesh. Just be attentive. Assam में, you can write with me only. Assam has fertile plain area. Am I right? Because of what? River Brahmaputra. Correct? If there is fertile plain, that means there will be good agriculture opportunities. Am I right? Agriculture prosperity hai, that means good livelihood opportunities. Correct? Plus Assam is one of the good, there are good developmental indicators of Assam in the form of HDI, in the form of basic infrastructure like roads, schools, हॉस्पिटल्स, ये सब कुछ कहाँ पे? आसाम में. प्लस आसाम में मतलब फर्टाइल प्लेन एरिया, गुड एग्रीकल्चर, लाइवलीहुड, सेकंड इज गुड डेवलपमेंटल एस्पेक्ट्स, एंड थर्ड, आसाम हैज मल्टीपल इंडिजीनियस ट्राइब्स लाइक कौन सा गाइज? बोडोज. एग्जाम्पल बोडोज दे रहा हूं मैं. देयर आर मेनी एग्जाम्पल बोडोज. Now, let us try to understand the problem of Assam. Why insurgency in Assam? Is it clear? समझ में आया सबको? Have you written this? Now, why Assam का insurgency? इसलिए you should know another state which is very important, that is Bangladesh. Now, if you try to understand Assam and Bangladesh, what is difference? Bangladesh में there is something called as why insurgency में first point. Bangladesh is, मतलब ये diagram draw करके you can write, Bangladesh में there is over population and there is lack of employment opportunities and lack of development, correct? And यहाँ पे इसका पूरा उल्टा है, fertile है, development है, livelihood opportunities है, correct? Fertile, development and livelihood opportunities, correct? These are the three things, positive things of Assam. So what will happen because of these three things, because of overpopulation, lack of development, and because of increasing radicalism, etc., in Bangladesh, what will happen? People क्या करेंगे? Because of this, people will migrate. That means because of this, there would be something called as migration. And because there would be migration, there was migration called as pull factors. Pull factors. Pull factors. किसका होगा pull factors? Assam. Am I right? Assam का क्यों pull factors? Because of these three things. Because of fertile lands, employment opportunities, development है, basic infrastructure है. Because of these 5 points, people will tend to move from Bangladesh to Assam. Am I right? And why is that people will be leaving? What are the push factors for people to leave from Bangladesh? Because of these two reasons. Got the idea? Am I right? But अब इसके बाद क्या होगा? Push and pull factors. I hope that you got that. Because of this next point, it leads to illegal immigration of the people. Am I right? Illegal immigration. From where? From the Bangladesh to India. कहाँ से? Illegal immigration from Bangladesh to India. Through what? Illegal immigration क्यों होता है? Anyone? Very good, very good. Because of porous boundaries and lack of effective border management. Am I right? Because of lack of effective border management and porous boundary, people can आराम से move from this territory to this territory. Okay? Now, as the people move from one territory to other territory, what will happen? What will happen? Second, मतलब इसका impact क्या होगा? Negative impact. It will leads to first, क्या? Change in demography. Am I right? Change in demography. Where change in demography? In this area, fertile plain area, right? Change in demography, competition with respect to indigenous tribes, right? Competition with respect to indigenous tribes. Am I right? It will lead to competition with respect to indigenous tribes. There will be change in the demography. There will be loss of employment opportunities. Loss of employment opportunities. Loss of employment opportunities. किसका loss of employment opportunities? Traditional people का. There would be threat to indigenous culture. Indigenous culture. Why? Because when the people are moving from a different area to a new area, when they are moving, they will also bring their own culture with them. Getting the idea? Threat to the indigenous culture in the form of language, land rights, etc. इसके लिए किसको खतरा है? To the indigenous people. Am I right? This will lead to the feeling of sense of alienation. Sense of alienation. In whom? Indigenous people. Am I right? Indigenous people का क्या होगा? Sense of alienation. Is it clear? Now that is why, third point I am writing here, hence violent clashes. Between whom, guys? Between indigenous tribes versus illegal immigrants. In the case of this, Bodos and basically Bengali immigrants. Is it clear? Now question is, if violence is there, then we have to find a solution. Right? Arao. So solution. So if there is a violence, first initially they won't start a violence. First they will start to protest. Protest against outsiders. Am I right? And this protest in Assam was led by something called as ASU, All Assam Students Union. All Assam Students Union started to protest. कैसे protest था इनका? Peaceful protest. In 1979 के बाद शुरू हुआ. In 1970s you can write. In 1970s, ASU started to protest. ASU started to protest. All Assam Student Union started to protest against whom? Against the outsider. And demanded, इनका demand क्या था? And demanded, क्या demand करना था इनको? To detect, मतलब ढूंढो and deport, and उनको हटाओ. Detect and deport किसको? Illegal immigrants. Detect and deport illegal immigrants. Detect and deport illegal immigrants. Is it clear? In this context, after this happened, in this context, in 1985, what was there? Hence, कितना point है वो? Point number 5. Hence, in 1985, what was signed? Assam Accord. Hence, in 1985, Assam Accord was signed between government of India and ये. As per this Assam Accord, क्या करने वाले थे हम लोग? There were 3 provisions. The people who are staying between 1951 to 61, people who are staying in Assam from 1961 to 71, and people who are post 1971, people who are present post 1971. For them, each of the citizens staying in the Assam from 1951 to 61 will be allowed full citizenship, right to vote, everything, like normal like us, everything. But the people who have entered from 1961 to 71 will not be given right to vote. So they will be citizens, but right to vote was not given for net another 10 years. And uske baad, people who are came to Assam after 1971, क्यों 1971? Because post Indo-Bangladesh war, many of the people migrated, and post 1971, whoever migrated will be detected and deported. उनको ढूंढा जाएगा और they will be asked to leave the country. Getting the idea? Post 1971 का. But question is, the most important question is, post 1971, who are the people whom you are going to detect and how you are going to detect? Getting the idea? That is 6th point. How to detect? How to detect these illegal immigrants? How to detect illegal immigrants? इसीलिए था अपना नेशनल रजिस्टर ऑफ citizenships. So NRC will validate us that who are real citizens. समझ में आया सबको? Who are real citizens will be validated by whom, guys? NRC. But what is NRC? NRC is a register, right? NRC is a register prepared after census 1951. After census 1951, and NRC exercise is carried out, and NRC exercise is carried out is carried out under Citizenship Act 1955. Under Citizenship Act 1955. Okay. So that is why NRC updation was always required and always in news. इसीलिए this case went into the Honorable Supreme Court के पास. Supreme Court gave the directives to perform NRC, to find who are to abide to this provisions of Assam Accord, to stop the basically rivalries and the violence. ये करो, ढूंढो. If you want to find them, do this. Getting the idea? So henceforth this exercise was conducted. But while conducting this exercise, there were various concerns that were noted. Don't write, बाद में लिखो. What were the concerns? First, yeah, right. Concern पहला था, many genuine people found their name missing from NRC. जो genuinely citizens है, उनका नाम ही नहीं है वहाँ पे. किसमें? NRC में. Question is why? Because the registers, etc., जो भी whatever we maintain the government departments, most of the times because of the disasters like floods, etc., चला गया. Now 1951 में जो जन्मा है अभी उसका साल देखो ना 70 ईयर का, अब वो जाके कहाँ पे ढूंढेगा? Getting the idea? So वो क्या करेगा? So genuinely people are missing, right? And basically that was the most biggest concern. That is why NRC was in news. And because of similar things which will have positive impacts on the demography and on the culture of Assam, that is why throughout the India NRC is demanded now. Is it clear? You write concerns of NRC. First, genuine names of many citizens were missing. It excluded, NRC excluded 4 million residents of the states. 4 million residents of the states. Is it clear? So this is the main issue in Assam which you should be having idea about. And Assam में और एक issue मैंने क्या बोला था? Indigenous tribe versus the illegal immigrants. Who are these indigenous tribe which I told you? Bodos. Now we'll see about Bodo issue. Just don't write, just understand. Now Bodos, if you try to understand Bodos are ancient tribal people staying in the fertile plain on the northern banks of river Brahmaputra. They are mainly dominant in this area. ये जो area मैंने दिखाया है, this area is a presence where Bodos are present. Who are present? Bodo tribes. Okay, now don't write, I will dictate. Understand. Now Bodos are ancient and indigenous tribes. Of Assam. Since they are indigenous, they are having unique culture, they are having unique language, that is Bodo language, and unique way of living. And they are given ST status in Assam. Scheduled tribe का status ही है इनको. कहाँ पे? In Assam. And they compose about 5 to 6% of the Assam population. इनका population कितना है? About 6% of the Assam population, and they have been granted ST status in Assam. And they are indigenous people, that means the true people who are actual residents of this, and they are having unique culture, unique language, सब कुछ इनका है. But because of this illegal immigrants which I have shown here, there is always threat to their culture, demography, etc. That is why these clashes are there. And because of this, an organization called as National Democratic Front of Bodoland, NDFB, is an insurgent organization which wants, because of this, wants a separate state called as Bodoland. इनको separate state बनाना है, just like Manipur और Meghalaya, खुद का state, that is Bodoland. Because they are marginalized. इसीलिए always there are violent clashes. In this context, if violence is there, government of India have to take measures. Now, when government of India have to take the measures, we know that कि Assam is included in 6th schedule. समझ में आया? So इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने क्या किया in 1993 में पहले, उसके बाद 2003 and recently there are 3 agreements that happened between GOI and that is government of India and Bodos. 1993, 2003 and third is recent Bodo Pact. Recently 2020 में हुआ. So as per this 6th schedule, Bodo Territorial Council was formed, BTC. As per this BTC, more powers will be given to this area, these tribes. These tribes are present dominantly in Kokrajhar district. यहाँ पे कोकराझार वगैरह districts है in Assam. इनको more powers, special packages will be given, but they have to leave the demand of the state. And recent pact under this Modi government, which was undertaken in this Bodo, was one of the successful act of this government, where Bodos were taken into confidence. They were asked to come, surrender their arms. We will do your better rehabilitation. We will provide you money and infrastructure for your development, right? Certain areas where your population is present in other than the normal districts will be also included in this territorial council. Getting the idea? But you leave the path of violence. So that is why recent Bodo Pact is a successful act of this incumbent government. Is it clear? You write Bodo issue. Bodos are the tribes living in fertile Brahmaputra plains are the indigenous tribes living in the fertile Brahmaputra plain. There is ancient rivalry. There is rivalry, not ancient, rather, right? There is rivalry between Bodos and Bengali immigrants. Bodos are, next point, Bodos are notified ST tribe in Assam. Notified ST tribe in Assam, composing 5 to 6% of population. Comprising 5 to 6% population of Assam. Comprising 5 to 6% population of Assam. First stop. Bodos have own language, own culture. Own language and own culture. Hence, next point, hence a Bodo statehood movement, was started for Bodo land, Next point you can write here, this Bodo land ka this area, districts like Kokrajhar, Chirang, Chirang, next point again, comprising Kokrajhar, Chirang, Udalgiri, Baksa, Baksa, etc. Next point to write. For its statehood movement, NDFB, National Democratic Front of Bodoland, was constituted, which carried attacks, killings, extortion, etc. Attack, killings, extortion, etc. This insurgent group was countered by security forces, Full stop. Next point you write. Recent 2020 Bodo Accord. Recent 2020 Bodo Accord. Underline करना इसको. It is an accord between central government, state government and Bodo groups. It is a accord between central government, state government and different Bodo groups to find a solution to contain the insurgency in the region. Next point. Various provisions of the pact or agreement are: first, it provides for alteration of BTAD. इसका मतलब क्या होगा? बोडो टेरिटोरियल एरियाज districts outside BTAD and calls it मतलब मैंने बोला ना आपको कि these areas they are going to include extra area and calls it Bodo Territorial Region, BTR, calls it Bodo Territorial Region. Next point, it provides for more legislative, executive, administrative and financial power to BTC that is Bodo Territorial Council. Next, it has provision for surrender and rehabilitation of NDFB militants. Next, Bodo language in Devanagari script. Next provision, Bodo language in Devanagari script would be associated as official language of entire Assam. Next, special developmental package shall be provided for the development of region. I hope you got it. Interesting, है ना? So this is what is, see, they won't ask you state wise, but if you are able to write it, that is much more effective. Getting the point? You can make use of this either in your essays or your answers. कुछ कहीं पे ना कहीं पे तो काम आएगा. Getting the idea? Now, after this, what was the point? Just see the index page. I hope you got the idea. Meaning, origin, factors, state-wise status, and issues like basically अभी हमने discuss किया NRC, Naga Pact, right? Manipur violence. I hope that you are getting the idea. We are simultaneously discussing it. NRC का issue समझ में आया सबको? Manipur violence समझ में आया? Naga Pact समझ में आया, right? Now later we will understand this part, and now we will see about mitigation strategy or government of India का approach. Is it clear? We'll take a break and then we'll start it. Okay? So now let us see, after understanding the meaning, that is the act of a rebellion or armed insurgency by a group of section to overthrow the government and establish their own state is called as insurgency, which have different reasons because different tribes ka different demands are there, right? And we have seen everything. And let us try to understand what are the government challenges, right? Because border challenges we have seen. What are the border challenges with respect to insurgency? The boundaries are rugged terrain, porous boundaries, difficult geographic terrain, difficult to keep the surveillance, ethnic linkages across the borders, which promotes easy infiltration, etc. These are the challenges that we have seen. So here you can write the challenges across the Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, etc. Is it clear? Now let us try to understand most important point, what is the government of India's mitigation strategy with respect to the insurgency. Now if you try to understand, to answer this question, that is insurgency ka mitigation, government of India's, don't write, first listen, government of India's mitigation strategy for insurgency. Mitigation strategy for insurgency. Now tell me, if you try to understand factors responsible, what are the factors responsible for basically insurgency? Lack of development, right? Lack of development. Secondly, border management and associated issues. Easy availability of terror financing, correct? Finances availability था. कहाँ से? Fake currencies, drugs, smuggling, prostitution, armed rackets, organized criminal linkages. Because of this financing, insurgency is fueling. Also, the atrocities committed by the armed forces and the allegations related to it, like human right violation, etc. Extrajudicial killing. Lack of development, lack of connectivity, lack of people-to-people contact, lack of employment opportunities. All these were the problems. Then more infiltration and change in the demography, especially Bodos, etc. So these were the problems. Now we have to find a solution to these problems. Now tell me, is this a unidimensional problem? No. So government of India's mitigation strategy should follow multi-pronged strategy. Multi-pronged strategy. Why it should follow multi-pronged strategy? Because the problem itself is multidimensional. In this context, you have to take, since now you have understood this, because of this you have to take various measures. The measures in the form of the following areas. First, you have to take infrastructural development measures. Infrastructure development measures. Second most important is effective border management, right? Right constitutional and legal safeguards and their implementation. Legal measures and their implementation. Then institutional measures and security forces based measures. Both I am clubbing here. Okay. So these are the 4-5 areas where you have to take the measures. Let us try to understand here. In institutional measures, if you try to understand, there is something called as a Department of Northeast Region. Have you heard about it? Department of Northeast Region. So this Department of Northeast Region focuses to bring n number of investments and multi-developmental projects. Because of this n number of basically projects and multi-development projects, what will happen? Infrastructure, the basic infrastructure will develop, people will get the employment opportunities, correct? And infrastructure like roads, rails should be developed. I know it is difficult to develop in Northeast India, but you should develop it. You should bring in investment. You should bring tourism, right? Tourism. In this context, you should bring people-to-people contact. I am writing in the context of infrastructure, but still I am writing here. People-to-people contact. Reduce discrimination, deprivation, and bring development, that is good governance. Good governance and different schemes should be implemented. So in this context, Government of India के पास there are multiple policies, schemes and initiatives started by Government of India for development of Northeast India, for better quality of living, for better HDI, सबके लिए. Example, you have different schemes for road construction, employment. ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग प्रमोट कर सकते हो, टूरिज्म प्रमोट कर सकते हो, डेवलपमेंट प्रमोट करना है, गुड गवर्नेंस करना है, हेल्थ, हॉस्पिटल्स, education, everything you have to promote, basic infrastructure and other institutional things. Getting the idea? In this context, most important is increase the connectivity. Correct? Connectivity. Why you have to increase the connectivity? For people to people contact. And for what? For integration of the people. Of which people? Northeast region people in mind and spirit. They should feel that they are also part of India. We should not discriminate. We should go always and understand the culture. Getting the idea? For example, right now we are in South India. We find a stark difference between North and South India. This should not happen here. We should, for that you need connectivity. Getting the idea? Now for connectivity, you have multiple projects. Example, you have something called as basically Kaladan multimodal project. You can bring here. You have BBIN project, right? You have trilateral highway projects. चाहे कैसे भी करो, but connectivity बढ़ाओ. Getting the idea? This connectivity, increasing connectivity, will help to counter the China. Also counter the China. Why? Because China is building the basically infrastructure along the borders. So for the effective mobilization of the forces, you need infrastructure. So that during warlike situation, आपको अगर if you need any armed forces, you need weapons, etc. For that you need roads. How are you going to move the tanks and the artilleries? For that you need connectivity. So connectivity, infrastructure, people to people contact, etc. are the most important things here. And here we need to bring in the investment. Getting the idea? Along with the security forces. Is it clear? Now, for effective border management, let us try to consider. I will just draw a map over here. So imagine this is your Northeast India, where you have n number of states, right? Now the law and order is the state subject, right? So this is your Northeast India. So सबसे पहले क्या होना? There is an issue with respect to border. Rugged terrain है, सब कुछ है. But still you have to do effective border management. कैसे करोगे आप? For that, what are you going to do? First, you are going to increase the patrolling. Correct? For what? Increasing the surveillance. Correct? Effective patrolling and increasing the surveillance will also help us to track the movement of the people. Am I right? Movement of the people or movement of the insurgent, I can say. For this, you can also make use of the satellites. For example, GSAT-7 satellite, ये क्या help करता है? For the easy tracking the easy movement of the people. Despite in this, getting the idea. So satellite का भी you can make use of the technology in this. You can make use of the radars. Sorry, rather than thermal imaging equipments, right? You can also make use of the CCTV cameras. मतलब bring in technology, bring in number of forces, do the capacity building along the border areas, involve the people, right? You have to build the confidence building measures along the, this is very important, along the border communities. Border communities. The people who are living in this border area are the people who really have the local intelligence. If you are able to win them, that essentially means that you are effectively able to manage the border. Because they are the first people who have the idea about any insurgency, any terrorism based activity. If you are able to win this, then that's it. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? So for border, you also, border management, you need technology, you need capacity building, you need infrastructure, you need connectivity. Getting the idea? So this is how you are going to manage this second part. In this effective border management, there are n number of committees. Example, recently constituted Sept committee. Sept committee was recently constituted, which had given its report with respect to effective border management. All the points I will discuss in border management and issues. But यहाँ पे you can include it. What? Sept committee. Shekatkar committee. Here you have n number of other committees. For example, Madhav Godbole committee. Madhav Godbole committee. As per this committee, one boundary. India has boundary with how many countries? 7. Every country. Now try to understand the boundary along this area. क्या है यहाँ पे? Dense forest and hilly areas. राजस्थान में क्या है? Desert. जम्मू कश्मीर में क्या है? Cold desert, that is glaciers. गुजरात में क्या है? Marsh areas. So if terrain is different, expertise needed for the force is also different. That essentially he meant something called as one boundary, one force principle. ये इसने बोला था सर ने. That means every boundary should have, depending upon its unique demand, आपको unique force raise करना है. That will help. For example, in marsh area, you should be good swimmers. Getting the idea? So, इस तरह से training should be also given in that way. Is it clear? So, इस तरह से if you are able to manage the borders, that essentially means you are going to control. क्या-क्या control करोगे आप? Money lending, money laundering, hawala transactions, fake currency, arms racket, drugs racket, prostitution, everything you will be controlling if you are able to effectively manage the borders. Getting the idea? Next is basically constitutional and legal measures. I hope you are getting that infrastructure schemes, etc. And here also ministries and developmental projects. Now here let us try to understand constitutional and legal measures. If you try to understand constitutional and legal measures, there are total 4 to 5 measures. Let us try to understand 6th schedule. 6th schedule. Second is Armed Forces Special Power Act, that is law, 1958. You have Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, 1967, and there are n number of other acts. If you try to understand 6th schedule, it provides autonomy, self-rule and decentralization to certain areas in Northeast India. Why? Because they are unique culture and where you need to devolve more powers to these tribals for their own administration. उससे क्या होगा? The tribals will not retaliate violently, their demands are also met, and plus everyone will have a peaceful coexistence. इसके लिए 6th schedule is the best option. Also, special constitutional articles, right? Article 371A, which will help to meet the demands of the certain sections of society, but within constitutional limits. Getting the idea? That essentially means that Government of India follows most important strategy is dialogues and deliberations. Dialogues and deliberation after you leave the path of violence. That is, first is you abjure the violence, that is leave the path of violence. Secondly, come to the negotiating table and let us discuss and deliberate. For what? For finding the solution with respect to your demands. Correct? But whatever the solution you are finding and whatever the demands you have shall be within constitutional and legal framework. This is the most important. नहीं तो आप कल जाके बोलोगे जैसे NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, IM is saying that constitution ही दे दो हमें. ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है? You ask development package, ठीक है भाई वो कर सकते हैं, but ये कैसे? मतलब dialogues and deliberations we are ready to do. We are ready for what? Something called as ceasefire agreements. Getting the idea? Ceasefire agreements. We are ready for something called as basically effective surrender and rehabilitation. Effective surrender and rehabilitation. We are ready for suspension of operations. अभी recently news में था, correct? SOO. Suspension of operations against the certain insurgent groups. Ceasefire मतलब शांति बनाए रखना. Second, suspension of operations. Next, you have dialogues, deliberations. So, what are these things going to do? These are going to find a solution to what? Insurgency. Getting the idea? Since problem is multi-pronged, you should have this multiple types of basically solutions, but there should be strictly action against the violence. You should write in this in the answer also and in your interview also. अगर violence create हो रहा है तो शुरू से नहीं, अगर violence कर रहे हो, then firstly I will going to deal effectively. Getting the idea? First I will deal effectively to control that violence and उसके बाद बात करूँगा. Getting the idea? So this is how, what is the strategy, and this is what are the different legal provisions, etc. APSPA is a different topic for us that we will discuss. Is it clear? You write solution or Government of India's response to the insurgency. Government of India's response to the insurgency. Since, first intro, since the issue of insurgency, have multiple dimensions, 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 have multiple dimensions. Hence, we need to adopt, a multi-pronged strategy. यहाँ पे लिखा है मैंने multi-pronged और multi-dimensional strategy. Okay, next point. There is need, solution में, there is need for dialogues, deliberations and negotiations, dialogues, deliberation and negotiation with the different groups, to incorporate their demands, within कौन सा? Within constitutional and legal frameworks. Within constitutional and legal framework. Next point. Ceasefire agreements, suspension of operations. Ceasefire agreement, suspension of operations. Effective surrender and rehabilitation policy. Suspension of operations, effective surrender and rehabilitation policy are the methods which shall help to contain insurgency in Northeast India. Next point. Multidimensional approach. For mitigation of insurgency is first. क्या है पहला? Infrastructure development. It improves the connectivity. And people to people contact. Thereby aiding cultural exchange. Aiding cultural exchange and integration. Exchange and integration. Next. Basic infrastructure development like roads, railways, hospitals, schools, etc. Next. Next you write employment generation. Employment generation. Good governance. Good governance. Employment generation, good governance. Shall also help to bring the development. Shall also help to bring the development in Northeast region. Shall also help to bring development in Northeast region. Second, you write effective border management. Effective border management. It shall help to effective border management. It shall help to reduce movement of insurgents, movement of insurgent, infiltration of illegal migrants, infiltration of illegal migrants, exchange of drugs and arms, etc. Exchange of drugs, arms, etc. Full stop. This can be done through this matlab क्या? Border management can be done through first fencing. Second fencing. उसके बाद surveillance and patrolling. CCTV usage. Thermal imaging equipments. Next, confidence building measures. उसी में confidence building measures with respect to local communities, with respect to local people along the borders, border. Next, security related measures. Modernization of police forces, उसमें देखो security related measures. Modernization of police forces. Second, effective coordination between central and state and paramilitary forces. Capacity building. Next is capacity building, etc. Next to write constitutional and legal measures. Effective implementation of sixth schedule, Armed Forces Special Power Act, UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967, Article 371A, special provisions wala, Article 371A, etc. are essential. Next, institutional measures. Ministry of Development of Northeast Region. Ministry of Development of Northeast Region, DONER, Development of Northeast Region, for better planning and coordination, for better planning and coordination of developmental project, for better planning and coordination of developmental projects with Northeast Council, is essential. Second, promotion of mega developmental projects. Promotion of mega development project. ये कौन से projects होने चाहिए? Green projects, in bracket write green projects. Mega development projects, in bracket green projects. Tourism. Shall be promoted. Shall be promoted. Got the idea? Is it clear? So these are the measures that should be done. APSPA ka issue we'll see separately. Is it clear? So I hope you got the idea. Now you write as per this Ministry of Home Affairs. Generally what we see generally, if this is Northeast India, we generally tend to see recent status. Don't write, first listen. Recent status. So recent status में in Northeast India, insurgency in Northeast India, as per Ministry of Home Affairs, as per MHA report, in Northeast India, the total number of violent incidents. Second, total number of deaths. किसका? Civilians plus security forces. And the number of surrenders by the different armed forces, violent incidents have went reduced by about 85% since 1990s. Secondly, deaths of civilians etc. are very minimal. If you keep apart the present Manipur violence, usko chhod diya to almost only about 3 to 5 people were killed. That is also not justified, but still deaths have reduced and surrenders have increased in the recent times. Is it clear? Now if you want to completely control insurgency, then एक ही चीज control करो, that is money. Without finance, that is money means finance, I essentially mean. Without finance, no activity can breed or continue. पैसे के बिना कुछ नहीं होता. Logical? Who is, for example, in Jammu Kashmir, we know that nowadays this guy, that is Pakistan, or the non-state actors like Lashkar-e-Toiba, etc., are using the different methods and techniques to defame the Indian forces. What is the recent way? Crowd mobilization and stone pelting. तो कोई भी पागल नहीं है stone pelt करने के लिए. He is being paid. That is why stone pelting happens. That means if I don't have, just imagine if this X organization do not have any money to pay to the people for throwing one stone, तो कौन करेगा? Getting that? For everything you need money. If you are able to curb the finance, you will be able to win the war against the terrorism. Getting the idea? So this is the recent status and what needs to be done. Is it clear? You write recent status of insurgency. As per MHA report, first point, as per MHA report, insurgency have reduced by, as per MHA report, insurgency have reduced by 85% with respect to 1990s. Second, the number of surrenders by the armed insurgent groups have increased. Third, there is significant decline in in the deaths of civilian and security forces. Fourth, GOI, that is Government of India, is successful to ink, INK, to ink multiple ceasefire and SOO. GOI is successful in inking, INKING, inking multiple ceasefire agreement, comma, SOO, matlab suspension of operation with respect to different groups in Northeast India. Okay. So this is the recent status. In conclusion type you write, terror financing is availed through corruption money, hawala transactions, money laundering, fake currencies, drugs, arms cartels, prostitution, cryptocurrencies, etc. Full stop. It is essential to stop these finances to curtail insurgency and any form of violence. Correct? Done, guys? Now, let us try to understand 2 to 3 issues in general and in quick way, right? So, these 2 to 3 issues are as follows, which you now know everything, but still I will just sum it up. These 3 issues are as follows. Don't write, first listen, then uske baad मैं dictate करता हूँ. One is inner line permit. You might have heard about it. Inner line permit, which is always in news in Northeast India. Second is about Chakma Hejong refugees. And third is your UPSPA, which is always in controversy. UPSPA 1958. So I will try to tell you all of these in general. आपको क्या पता करना है for examination? What is it? Where is it? Why is it? And its advantages. That's it. ये 4 points कर रहे हैं. Exactly same. Chakma Hejong refugees. Who are they? Where they are right now? And what are the issues with them? That's it. Is it clear? Now, let us try to understand inner line permit. I will teach you through the diagrams only. So first I will tell you Rohingya का अपना issue है. So let us first try to understand Chakma Hejong refugees के बारे में बोलता हूँ. Chakma Hejong. So Chakma Hejong refugees were basically the residents of this area. What is this area? This is the area in Bangladesh called as Chittagong Hills. They were the residents of Chittagong Hills in Bangladesh. But Bangladesh, post-independence, constructed multiple, I would say, projects. And one of the project was dam project. So if there is a large dam project, most of the habitable area will get submerged under the waters, the backwaters. So there was a construction called as Kaptai Dam. which was constructed in 1966-67 by this Bangladesh. So that is why the people staying in this area, especially the Chakma and Hejong refugees, which are belonging to basically Buddhist and Hindus, basically denominations, had to move away. Why they had to move away? Because construction of the dam. So now when they are moving away, they entered India through something called as Lushai Hills. It is in Mizoram. Lushai Hills, right? Lushai Hills in Mizoram. They entered India into India through Lushai Hills. But the indigenous tribes of Mizoram did not allow them to stay here. That is why the persecution of these guys started. So they left here and they moved on to Tripura, correct? And few of them stayed in Tripura and few of them went to Arunachal Pradesh. Got it? समझ में आ रहा है? Why? Because the persecution were undergoing. Persecution was undergoing. So that means these are the citizens belonging to Hindu and Buddhist communities, religious denominations, but they are not recognized as, that is the most important issue, that is they are not recognized as citizens. And they are not provided multiple, I would say, facilities which are provided to the normal citizens. In this context, COVID ke waqt, this was in news for a long time, COVID ke waqt. During COVID, they are also people, they also need treatment, but they are not residents. So kya kare? And from where are they? Who are they citizens? Why should I provide them services? So that is why there was a concern. In this context, there was one act in 2019 called as Citizenship Amendment Act. Do you remember? As per the Citizenship Amendment Act, the people belonging to 6 religious denominations, Hindus, Buddhists, Parsis, Jains, etc., except Muslim denomination, from 3 countries, Bangladesh, Myanmar and Pakistan, were to be accorded citizenship rights in our country for the people who were persecuted and being left from those countries. By taking count of this, ऐसा बोला गया कि let us give them to this also. Getting the idea? Now these Chakma Hejong refugees, which are staying right now in Arunachal Pradesh, are having issues. कैसे? The indigenous people of Arunachal Pradesh are saying, because which are basically, I would say, Buddhist Tibetan people, which are having, they feel that they are being marginalized because of the infiltration of the new denomination people. Getting the idea? Again, the same problem is happening here. Getting the idea? This is about the Chakma Hejong refugees. Basic, they won't ask, but you should have idea. Next is basically your inner line permit. Okay. So what is this inner line permit? Let me tell you. Inner line permit is a travel document. Correct? It is a travel document. It is just like a ticket. एक documented ticket होता है. As you enter the railway or any bus, a conductor gives you a ticket. It's just like a inward travel document. Inward travel document given to the people. कौन से people? Us only. The citizens. For what? Traveling into the certain restricted areas or protected areas. These protected areas are in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram. So in these 4 states, inner line permit is basically present, where for the inward travel into the protected areas in this state, the people need to carry this document everywhere. Getting the idea? Basically, the genesis of this ILP goes back to the Bengal Frontier Regulation Act of 1873. Why was it done? It is done because imagine the same problem, just like that is happening with Bodos. Outside people, imagine the outside people are coming and living here. What will happen? Change in the demography, conflicts, then alienation of the land rights, discrimination, ये सब कुछ होगा. So rather than that, the best way is, if these are the indigenous people, I am going to protect this area by demarcating it as a ILP. And if now someone new person, let us consider this, we the citizens of India, हमें यहाँ पे जाना है, right? So here, while entering this, we have to take a document. On this document, it will be completely mentioned how much time we are living, where we are going, everything. And we will go there, everything. Movement is not restricted. but वहाँ पे कुछ भी करना allowed नहीं, then you can come out. Getting the idea? So this will keep these tribal people happy with respect to their own traditional indigenous rights and culture. Getting the idea? So this is just a solution to stop all the issues. Getting the idea? This was the basically the genesis lies in the colonial times, ILP. Got it? And there is one more thing called as basically issue which was going 1 year back, that is about basically Rohingyas. So this is your Myanmar or Burma, correct? Now this Myanmar mein, here exactly in this part, here you have which state? Rakhine state. This is Mizoram, this is Manipur, Nagaland, etc. वैसे यहाँ पे Rakhine state is there. In Rakhine state, there is a group of a religious denomination group or minority group जिसका नाम है Rohingyas. Now these Rohingyas are the religious minorities belonging to the Muslim denominations, religious denomination, right? Now what is happening? They are not recognized as the citizenship, and that is why the government and the armed forces are carrying out multiple operation raids against them. Easily, that means they are being persecuted. After the persecution, what will be the impacts? Will you stay here if you are persecuted? No. So that is why they are moving to Bangladesh and to India and some to mainland India. Now just imagine if a particular religious denomination people, if they are persecuted on the basis of just religion and not being citizen, will they be alienated, angry, etc.? That means these are the best targets for what? They are the best targets for propagating the extremism and their ideas. And exactly this is what was captured by Lashkar-e-Toiba. Lashkar-e-Toiba and their people rightly captured the emotions of these people, and they were making utilization of these people for aggravating the lone wolf attacks and other insurgent based activities. So this is yet another concern for the internal national security. Is it clear? So these are the three issues. Next is APSPA, but usse pehle ye likh lo. First you write inner line permit. Issues in Northeast India. First, inner line permit. Inner line permit is a inward travel document issued by the state authorities permitting the travel of Indian citizens in protected territory. Got the idea? This is the meaning. Next point. ILP was implemented as the part of Bengal Eastern Front Regulation Act. Bengal Eastern Front Regulation Act 1873. Why was this basically done? This was done किसके लिए? To protect the British interest, right? ये इसके लिए था. This was not for something good, but to protect their own British commercial interest. That is why it was part of this, right? Next point. ILP inner line permit presently is applicable in four northeastern states. Is applicable in 4 northeastern states. कौन से, right? AP, Arunachal Pradesh, NG, Nagaland, MP, Manipur, MZ, Mizoram. Okay. Importance of ILP. Next point. Importance or significance of ILP. First point. To preserve indigenous culture and tradition. To preserve indigenous culture and tradition. Second, to check, CHECK, to check illegal immigration and encroachment. Third, to safeguard the demographic balance of tribals in Northeast region. To safeguard demographic balance of tribals in Northeast region. Got it? इसीलिए ILP is there. Second, you write issue Chakma Hejong refugees. Chakma, CHAKMA, Chakma Hejong refugees. These are, first point, these are original residents of where? Chitgaon Hill Tract. That is former Eastern Pakistan, guys. Chitgaon Hill Tract. But they had to migrate when the land was submerged. By whom? Guys? Kaptai Dam project in 1960s. By Kaptai Dam project in 1960s. Chakmas, next point, Chakmas, in bracket write Buddhist by faith. Chakmas, CHAKMA, Chakma, in bracket, Buddhist by faith, bracket complete. Faced religious persecution along with Hajongs, 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 who were Hindus. Full stop. They entered India through कहाँ से? Lushai Hills, in bracket write Mizoram. Lushai Hills, in bracket Mizoram. They did not have land and citizenship rights. Next point. Land and citizenship rights. Next point. If these are provided, what will happen? Again, indigenous tribes will not feel happy, right? If these are provided, indigenous tribes will feel alienated and deprived of the opportunities. Who will feel this? The indigenous tribes. Correct? So these are the main issues in the Northeast India. Now let us try to understand yet another issue which is very important for the examination, that is APSPA. Is it clear? Have you heard about it? Armed Forces, you write heading, Armed Forces Special Power Act. Special Power Act 1958. You can write history, first point, history. And then I'll write the aim and objective. Okay. So what is the history for this act? Armed forces, naam mein dekho, you read the name. Armed forces, which are the armed forces specifically? Basically, it is speaking about the army. What is it having? Certain special powers, right? And who is giving it? An act. That is, a law is giving special powers to the armed forces. Question is, why is it giving? To tackle the extraordinary situation. Getting the idea? So basically, this is not actually the act which was enacted by us. It was actually the act. History lies basically first. It was enacted to suppress. You can write, it was enacted to suppress. What it had to enacted to suppress? The Quit India movement of 1942. Correct? Chale jao. Andolan, which became violent. Actually, it was to be peaceful protest. But after the arrest of the people, of the national leaders, what happened? It went leaderless and there was a lot of violence. To curb that violence, powers were needed to the British forces. And those forces के लिए हमने क्या लाया? APSPA. हमने मतलब British. However, post-independence, क्या हुआ था in Northeast India? Insurgency, right? However, post-independence, to curtail insurgency in Northeast India, क्या हुआ था? Who had started basically the insurgency in Northeast India? Naga National Council. Who is the leader? Angami Fizo. So to curtail this insurgency in Northeast India, an ordinance was passed. Ordinance was passed in 1958. Named as क्या नाम था उसका? Armed Forces Special Power Act. Getting the idea? Actually, it was the ordinance passed by basically Dr. Rajendra Prasad. उसके बाद act हुआ ये. What is the idea? Why it was ordinance? Because extraordinary situation था, तो we had to immediately pass the act. Is it clear? So that is why it was passed. Getting the idea? Now this won't be asked. छोड़ दो ये. But still you should know it. Now question is, what is the aim and objective of this act? You can write aim. Second, powers given. Second point to write powers given. Third, issues associated with APSPA. And fourth, you can write aim and objective, powers given to the armed forces. Third is issues, need of it, and way forward. If you want, we are going to write different committees and their observations with respect to APSPA. Aim, powers, issues, need, way forward, and the different committees. Is it clear? Now don't write anything, just listen. Now, let us try to understand what is the aim and objective. Before that, let us try to understand what is the need. Right? Need I have written at the end because we need to understand issues and then need. But before starting telling me the aim and objective, let me try to tell you the scenario. Now, scenario is that if we try to understand India and its border, most important point is India ke paas mein we have something called as basically unfriendly neighbors. अपने जो neighbors हैं, those are not good. This guy is basically aggressive, and this guy is basically the one which supports terrorism, right? And because of these guys, we are facing multiple problems. Is it clear? Plus, we are sandwiched between something called as Golden Triangle, the area encompassing Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, and here we have something called as basically Golden Crescent, that is nearby Pakistan, which fuels the terrorism and insurgency in India. That means, can I say terrorism in India, let that be of any form, insurgency is also a form of terrorism, is basically fueled by certain other factors? मतलब इंडिया का टेररिज्म जो है, that is state sponsored terrorism by the different countries, अपने खुद के लोगों ने नहीं. They are responsible basically. This is the reality. Okay, we cannot write it explicitly, but this is reality. But if you try to understand, India is also sandwiched between those things, golden crescent and golden triangle. From here, we have multiple drugs, right, fake currencies, etc. And here we have arms, etc. Right? Plus there is organized criminal linkages. इसीलिए there are n number of armed insurgent groups and terrorist groups which are completely radicalized. Now they are going to cause violence and damage to the infrastructure within India. Kashmir hoga, Northeast India hoga, which is going to cause loss to the lives and the property, and is going to basically reduce the security aspects of the nation. Peace, law and order, peaceful coexistence, ये कुछ नहीं बचेगा. Now, if this is the situation, then to deal with certain extraordinary situation, we need certain powers. Powers to whom? To the law enforcement agencies and the forces. इसीलिए we need UPSPA. Getting the idea? So because of these unfriendly neighbors, because of multiple problems, हमें क्या चाहिए? UPSPA चाहिए. This is actually essential. But there are problems that we will discuss. So the objective of this Armed Forces Special Power Act is as follows. It provides, UPSPA is a act, don't write, first listen, is an act which provides special powers to किसको? Armed forces, special powers to the armed forces, where in disturbed areas, and these special powers to these armed forces are nothing but legal immunity against their actions. समझ में आ रहा है? मतलब if you kill someone, IPC 302 लग जाएगा. इनको ऐसे कुछ नहीं, immunity है. Getting the idea? That is the problem. That means special powers are given to the armed forces to deal with certain extraordinary situation in which areas? Only in disturbed areas. Question is, what are these disturbed areas? Right? These disturbed areas are the areas declared under the section 3 of this act, Armed Forces Special Power Act 1958. ये act का, there are different sections, section 3, section 4, section 5. Section 3 defines the area as a disturbed area if there is no law and order. In this context, as per section 3, any area where there is lack of peace, coexistence, law and order, and if it is deemed so that it is disturbed, then central government or state governor or administrator of union territory can declare the respective state or particular part of the state as disturbed area. मतलब पूरा कर्नाटका या फिर सिर्फ उत्तर कर्नाटका या फिर बेंगलोर डिस्ट्रिक्ट, ये कौन डिक्लेयर करेगा? गवर्नर करेगा, फॉर एग्जांपल, और सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर ऑफ यूनियन टेरिटरी इफ इट इज यूटी. Getting the idea? As the disturbed area. And which is disturbed area? As they will deem so. And they will deem so on the basis of law and order, peaceful coexistence, etc. Getting the idea? So in this area, now the role of armed forces will come into play. Now these armed forces will come to tackle this extraordinary law and order problem, right? Now when they are tackling law and order problem, just imagine right now I am the security force wala banda and you guys are insurgent groups, okay? If I have to fire you, the normal police service officers, then he has to take permission. There are multiple procedures, right? ऐसे नहीं मार सकते किसी को भी. Imagine right now you are insurgents and you are embedded with multiple, I would say, weapons, AK-47 होगा, सब कुछ है आपके पास. अब मैं क्या कॉल करके सर आगे बैठा है, मैं परमिशन लो. So मुझे कोई तो नहीं तो मार के चले जाओगे, right? So to deal with this extraordinary situation, I need powers. इसीलिए मैंने क्या किया? To this armed forces, I gave them special powers and legal immunity with respect to my action. Question is, which are these legal immunities? First, I can prohibit gathering of more than 5 people. अगर मुझे लगा more than 5 people को नहीं आना चाहिए तो नहीं आना चाहिए. Second, I can arrest the people without the warrant. Without warrant, मैं बोल रहा हूँ, without warrant I can arrest. Third, I can do search and basically seizure of the properties, right? I can stop the vehicles. I can also do the stop the vehicles, do search and rescue. I can stop you from carrying the arms, correct? I can provide you the warning and I can do direct firing. I can destroy the hideouts of insurgents. अब मैं ये जो कुछ भी करूंगा इसके लिए I am not accountable to anyone. Getting the idea? That is the problem. But these are they needed? Essentially they are needed. But problem ये है, in this context, this is applicable where in the erstwhile state of Jammu Kashmir. That means present UT of J&K, Ladakh. उसके बाद it is applicable in Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland and Manipur. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? It is applicable in these states. In these states में not complete state. In particular area as declared under this part. Got it? Now, the allegations are as follows. Now the allegations क्या बोलते हैं? ये सुनो. Allegation says that because of this legal immunity provided to the armed forces for these actions, हो ये रहा है, there is something called as extrajudicial killings. Second, there is human right violation. There is fundamental right का violation. There is arbitrary arrest and detentions. Especially of the local youth. कैसे? Let us try to understand. Here I am arresting the people without warrant. That essentially means that I am violating Article 22 of the Constitution. Am I right? तो fundamental rights violate हो रहे. I am giving you warning and I am directly killing you. Is that human right violation? Is that human right? Just a minute, guys. So basically, where was I? So that killing and arrest is causing issue with respect to fundamental right violation. Am I right? Secondly, human right violation because of the deaths. And there are multiple allegations that because of these powers, army आके किसी को भी ठोक रही है. मतलब they are doing extrajudicial killings. Arbitrary arrest and detention are happening. And there is no accountability. That is the problem. Accountability of the security forces is not present. That is essentially a problem. So in this context, these are the main 4 issues and criticism to the act. Got it? Now, to study this, multiple committees were set up. Example, BP Jeevan Reddy Committee. Jeevan Reddy Committee. Second, Justice Santosh Hegde Committee, right? Justice Verma Committee. All these committees were set up. And what they found, do you know? In PILs, they found that basically out of the total number of the encounters and the killings, most of them were extrajudicial. That is why most of them have criticized this act. With respect to human right violation, with respect to human right abuses, fundamental right violation, etc. So rather than integration, this has caused more anxiety or anger amongst the local people against this act. Getting the idea? There are allegations that armed forces ने rapes, torture भी करते हैं against the women. So this is nothing but a very, very serious allegation by the local people. Understand this. Now, also they are saying that, also it is says that India is signatory to United Nations Declaration on Human Rights. If this is the India is signatory, then this APSPA is violating this. Getting the idea? India is a Gandhian country which believes in peace, satyagraha, और आप ठोकने के power दे रहे हो. Getting the idea? So how much is the contradictory situation? So this is essentially not sending a good message at the international forum also. Getting the idea? So India is also signatory to International Covenant of the Political Powers, etc. So there are multiple conventions, etc., which India is signatory. So that is also issue. India is violating that. So because of this, criticism is there. And as per the studies, what we found is that whatever the allegations are there, issues are there, some of them are genuine. But that does not mean you should repeal APSPA. So rather than that, this committee gave a recommendation which was very nice. What he said, rather than APSPA, you give more powers to the forces under UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 के तहत more powers दे दो APSPA को, to the security forces rather than this. Secondly, at any cost, you ensure accountability of the forces. Thirdly, do application of APSPA not throughout the year, rather only timing based case by cases के ऊपर apply करना. Getting the idea? And most important, ensure the justice against the victims who were dead. So this is nothing but the way forward, as suggested by all these committees. UAP, what is UAP? UAP is nothing but because here complete illegal immunity दी है ना, वहाँ पे वैसे नहीं है. Here it is complete illegal immunity, चाहे कुछ भी करो, UAPA के अंदर वैसे नहीं है. Got it? समझ में आ रहा है? So this is about APSPA, an important thing to be studied. Is it clear? Right. Armed Forces Special Power Act. Aim. APSPA grants extraordinary powers or special powers and immunity, to the armed forces to bring back what does it want to bring back? Law and order in which area? Disturbed areas. In disturbed areas. Underline karo special powers, legal immunity and disturbed areas ko. Okay? Next point. Disturbed areas are declared under section 3 of APSPA by central government, state governor, or administrator of union territory or administrator of the union territory. Next point. Special powers and legal immunity to the armed forces. Special powers and legal immunity to the armed forces are given in the following matters. First, arrest without warrant. Second, stop and search any vehicle. Third, prohibit gathering of more than 5 people. Next, enter or search the premise without warrant. Next, it can ban possession of firearms. It can ban possession of firearms. Next, it can destroy hideouts or fortified positions, or training camps from which attacks were made by the armed volunteers, Is it clear? Next point. Significance of UPSPA or need of UPSPA. Significance or need of UPSPA. These are the powers. Next point is significance or need of UPSPA. First point. क्यों need है उसका? To deal with the insurgency in Northeast and Jammu Kashmir. To deal with insurgency in Northeast and J&K. Second, to deal with extraordinary law and order situation. Third, to tackle effectively home, foreign terrorist, threatening the integrity of the country. Next, issues or criticism to UPSPA. ये next point है, criticism or issues with respect to the UPSPA. First point, violation of the human right. Am I right? Violation of the human right. उसके सामने लिखो, there are allegations of extrajudicial killing, fake encounters in disturbed areas. As per, उसी में next point, as per PIL in Supreme Court, mentions there were 1528 extrajudicial killings. There were 1528 extrajudicial killings from 2000 to 2012. मतलब PIL फॉर्म किया था, PIL was writ petition was filed in Supreme Court. As per that 1500 लोगों की मौत हुई है because of this. Is it clear? Second, अभी first is violation of human rights, second is violation of fundamental rights. Power to arbitrarily arrest and detain. Goes against Article 22 of the Constitution. Next, UPSPA. Next point, UPSPA violates United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, UNDHR, United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, So 3 issues हो गए, वायलेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट, वायलेशन ऑफ फंडामेंटल राइट्स, इट वायलेट्स यूनाइटेड नेशंस का डिक्लेरेशन. फोर्थ, it gives fourth issue, it gives blanket immunity to security personnel, blanket immunity to the security personnel, in bracket, right, no legal proceeding against the no legal proceeding against the security personnel without the prior approval of center, without the prior approval of center. Without the prior approval of center. Next point you write, committees for examining UPSPA. First, Jeevan Reddy Committee. Jeevan Reddy Committee 2005. First point. It emphasized UPSPA should be repealed. हटा दो. UPSPA should be repealed and appropriate provisions should be inserted in UAPA 1967. Second, UAPA 1967, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967, should be modified to give more powers to armed and paramilitary forces. More powers to armed and paramilitary force. Third, grievance cell shall be set up in the districts where UPSPA is applicable. Grievance cell should be set up in the districts where law and order situation is disturbed. In the districts where law and order situation is disturbed. Next committees you write, Justice Jeevan Verma Committee 2013 and Justice Hegde Committee 2013. These committees, Justice Verma and Justice Santosh Hegde Committee 2013, these committees also supported need to address the abuses under UPSPA and end the effective immunity enjoyed by the security forces. Way forward. First point, क्या बोला था मैंने? Ensuring justice for the victims. Second, government should fast track the cases and adopt transparent process and adopt transparent process to deal with human right violation cases. To deal with human right violation cases. Third, government should consider application of UPSPA. Government should consider application of UPSPA on case by case basis. On case by case basis. Next, ensuring accountability of the armed forces should be done. Next, government security forces should abide by the guidelines given by Honorable Supreme Court and G1 Reddy Committee. Should abide by the guidelines given by Supreme Court and G1 Reddy Committee. Is it clear? So this is your UPSPA. I will just read the question. I am not getting here. I will just read the question asked in the past with respect to this part. So the question is as follows. I will just read the question. I hope that you have this document. Question is as follows on UPSPA, which was asked by UPSC. I will just read it the question. Are you listening? Human rights activists constantly highlight the view that UPSPA is a draconian act leading to the cases of human rights abuse by the security forces. Full stop. What sections of UPSPA are opposed by the activist? Question mark. Critically evaluate the requirement with reference to the view held by the apex court. So, abhi jitna bhi content diya hai, that much is sufficient to answer this question. Is it clear? I hope you are getting the idea. So, this was the question of UPSC only, whichever I read, that was the UPSC question, that I hope that you can write it. Also, insurgency based questions you can go home and see, you can easily write it. Now, we have to see militancy in Jammu Kashmir. We have to see militancy in Jammu Kashmir because we pushed overground workers. We have to understand about the overground workers, radicalism and communalism, mob lynching. These are the 4 forms yet we have to understand, because on these 4 forms of extremism, questions have been asked in the past. And there is probability to be asked, especially on the insurgency or militancy in Jammu and Kashmir. Right? That why is that there is in Jammu Kashmir, why the state actors and the non-state actors are fueling the insurgency in Jammu Kashmir? Why is that there is low intensity warfare or proxy warfare? What are the methods utilized by the state actors, external state actors and non-state actors to fuel the insurgency in Jammu Kashmir? Getting the idea? वो सब कुछ हमें देखना है. And we also have to understand the radicalism, meaning what are the factors responsible for the radicalism and in what way government can effectively deal to contain the radicalism growing in India. Is it clear? So this we will see tomorrow. Tomorrow we will also see about terrorism and border management. Is it clear? Chalo, done. Thank you guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. Chalo, thank you. Thank you everyone. Thank you. Do you have any doubts? Any doubts? Chalo, ठीक है. Thank you guys.